what are the different stages, and how do we diagnose and what is the pathogenesis? What are the how does the HIV virus causes infection, which leads to the clinical features, and then we'll read the lab diagnosis of HIV. Okay. So first of all, HIV is a just hold on, please. HIV is an RNA virus in the group of lentivirus, and the subfamily is the retrovirus. Okay, and there are two major forms of HIV: HIV-1 and HIV-2. HIV-2 is more common in some African subcontinent and also found in Indian subcontinent, while in Europe, America, HIV-1 is more common. And the primary target for HIV virus is the CD4 plus T lymphocytes. Okay, but it also affects the monocytes, macrophages, and dendritic cell also. Okay. So, source of infection. What are the source of infection for HIV? All the body fluids and tissues are infectious. Okay. The virus can be found in body fluids, particularly the blood. So, blood is the most common fluid through which the virus transmits from one human to another. Then it can also be transmitted from the infected CSF or the cerebrospinal fluid, pleural fluid, peritoneal fluids, even semen, saliva, and breast milk, synovial fluid, vaginal fluid. Okay, organ. Sometimes, if organ transplantation has been done without screening for HIV, then it can also transmit via tissue. So, organ transplantation can also transmit the HIV infection, and very rarely it can also transmit from the body fluids like urine and feces also. Okay. So, modes of transmission. So, first of all, till now we have learned that HIV infection can be transmitted through any of the body fluids, most commonly blood, but can also be transmitted through pleural fluid, peritoneal fluid, pericardial fluid, even the synovial fluid, and to very rare extent it can also be transmitted through the urine. Okay, so now coming to the modes of transmission. The most common mode of transmission, which accounts for approximately 75% of the cases, is the sexual mode, okay, or the sexual transmission, and the other common mode of transmission is the parenteral. It accounts for 15% of the cases. Parenteral means whenever a person receives the blood from the infected donor through the blood transfusion or the blood product like platelets, RBC concentrate, or plasma, etc. Just wait for a while. Yes, we'll start. First mode of commonest mode of transmission is the sexual by sexual contact. Another mode is parenteral through the receive of the infected blood and blood products. Okay. Then sharing of the unsterilized needles or syringes is especially in the drug addicts. Okay. Then HIV can also be spread in the healthcare workers, especially in the healthcare workers, through the accidental needle sticking. Okay. And obviously we have discussed through the tissues by infected organ transplantation. Okay. So these are the most common modes of transmission of HIV. Okay, the virus can enter through the vagina, vulva, penis, rectum, and through the mouth during the oral sex. Okay, so if the people who have sexually transmitted disease or STDs like syphilis, genital herpes, chlamydial infection, gonorrhea, and all these people who already have other types of STDs, they are more likely to acquire HIV infection because there is already bleach in the mucosa. So, presence of pre-existing sexually transmitted disease is one of the risk factors for HIV. Okay. So, another mode is from the mother to fetus. Okay, this is called as vertical transmission. Okay, 30% of children born to the infected mothers have acquired infections unless the virus is being treated by the antiviral drug before the pregnancy. Okay, so during the pregnancy and at the time of the childbirth, at any time from mother to fetus, infection can happen, especially if the mother has not taken the antiviral or the retroviral drugs. Okay, so this is called as from mother to fetus or the mother to child is called as vertical transmission, and sometimes even from the nursing mother through the breast milk transmission can happen. Okay, so but it can also, till now we have discussed the commonest mode is sexual route, then from parental from infected blood and blood products, then we have discussed sharing of the needles among the drug abusers, accidental needle stick organ transplantation, vertical transmission from mother to fetus or mother to child, and from nursing mother to their kids. Okay, so these are the commonest mode of transmission of HIV. But HIV cannot be transmitted, or the transmission has not yet been detected by casual contact, by food, air, water, vectors like coughing, sneezing, spitting. Through these modes, the HIV infection cannot be transmitted. Shaking hands, touching, dry kissing, hugging, swimming pool, toilets, etc. All these things are usually not the risk factors for transmission of HIV. Okay. Now coming to the risk groups, homosexual or bisexual men constitute the largest group. Okay, then IV drug abusers, because they share the needles. If some person is having HIV and they share the needle, then other person can also develop HIV. Hemophilics, because why hemophilics? Because hemophilics receive multiple times multiple blood transfusions for factor 8. That is why if any time the blood is unscreened, then they may develop HIV. Okay, then recipient of blood and blood components, especially the blood, if the blood has not been screened for HIV. Then professional drug donors. Professional drug donors usually they are IV drug abusers, or they donate blood multiple times, so they are one of the risk factors for risk group for acquiring HIV infection. Then obviously the health professionals, because they can get needle stick injury. So all these are the risk group for HIV infection. Okay. Now coming to the structure of HIV. This is the structure of HIV which is given in your book Robbins. So if we discuss this is the relatively a simpler structure of HIV. Here we can see, since HIV is an RNA virus, so here this blue coil structures, these are the two copies of genomic RNA. Okay. So first component of the structure is the two copies of genomic RNA, then viral genes, reverse transcriptase, integrase, and protease. Okay, this is integrase, protease, reverse transcripted. So first is the genomic RNA, this blue thing, this blue coil structure. Then over it we have viral genes. There are three important viral genes: integrase, P32, protease, P10, and reverse transcriptase, P64. These are the viral genes. Okay. Surrounding this viral gene is a major caspid, this yellow thing. Okay. This is the major caspid, also called as P24 antigen. Okay. So this entire thing, this viral genome enclosed by this major caspid or the P24, this is the viral core. Okay. Surrounding this viral core, this green thing, this green structure is the matrix. I will shift it here so that you can see. Can't shift it. Trying to do what? I don't know. So this is matrix protein. This green thing is matrix protein. And sorry. And this matrix protein. And surrounding this matrix protein is the viral envelope. This red circle, the structure is viral envelope. Okay, this viral envelope is made up of this viral envelope is derived from the host, and it is made up of lipid bilayer. Okay, so viral particle यही होता है, this yellow viral genome surrounded by the major caspid protein or P24. This is the viral core. इसके बाहर होता है matrix protein. Okay, matrix protein के बाहर क्या होता है? Viral envelope, which is the lipid bilayer and derived from the host. Okay, and on this lipid bilayer, we have viral glycoproteins. The commonest one are GP120 and GP41. These are viral glycoproteins. Okay, they help in the attachment of the viral particle, and how then we'll discuss in the pathogens how this core goes inside the CD4 plus T cells. Okay, so this is the basic structure of HIV virus. Okay. Then coming to the viral genes. Okay, this picture is again given in your book Robbins. So here we have three major genes. One is the GAG, POL, and ENV. Okay, these are the three major genes, and these major genes, they help in the formation of the mature proteins of the virus. Okay, so they form the major proteins of the virus when they are cleaved by the viral proteases. They give rise to the formation of mature proteins. Okay, then we have accessory genes also like TAT, REF, VIF, NUF, VPR, VPU, etc. These genes, they help in the pathogenicity of the virus because they help to regulate the synthesis and also the assembly of the viral particles. Okay, so major genes help in the formation of the mature proteins of the virus, and the accessory genes, they help to maintain the pathogenicity of the virus by helping in the synthesis of the viral particles and assembly of the viral particles when the genome goes inside the host. Okay, so this was about the genes of the virus. And on the genetic basis, HIV-1 can be divided into three groups. M is the major, O is the outliner, M, O, and N. Neither M nor O. So M type among the HIV-1, M or the major type is most common. Okay, so this division is on the basis of genetic analysis. Okay, viral genes. Now coming to the pathogenesis of HIV infection. Once there is transmission of HIV infection through various routes, which we have discussed, be it a sexual route, from mother to fetus, parenteral, avid abusers, even the patient who is already having sexually transmitted diseases. All these patients, once they acquire the infection, then what happens? First step in the pathogenesis is entry of the virus through all these major routes, and these viruses, they have affinity for this. We have already discussed that these viruses, they have affinity for CD4 plus T cells. So the receptors on the CD4 plus T cells, they recognize the virus. So the viral glycoprotein GP120, it binds to the CD4 plus T cell. This is a receptor of CD4 plus T cell, and the virus GP120 binds to the CD4 plus T cell receptor. After binding of GP120 to CD4 plus T cells, there is some conformational changes. Okay, एक बार इसमें there is some rotation or some kind of conformational changes occur, and this leads to formation of another additional site for the virus attachment, and this is usually CCR receptors. CD4 receptor के बाद there is some conformational changes, and this leads to formation of another receptor site, which is CCR. So now it binds to CCR. So the another viral glycoprotein, that is GP41, which we have read. See this GP120 and GP41. GP120 binds to the CD4 plus receptor, and GP41 helps in the entry of the viral cleavage of this CD4 plus membrane and entry of the virus particle inside the cell. Okay, so then this GP41 membrane penetrates, and it causes lysis of the cell membrane, and virus membrane fuses with the lysins. Okay, and then there is entry of the viral genome into the cytoplasm of the host. Okay, so this is the viral genome. Now, with the help of the reverse transcriptase, which is the viral gene, there is formation of proviral DNA. Okay, इस viral genome से proviral DNA बनता है with the help of the reverse transcriptase. ठीक है, इसकी कॉपी बन जाती है. This is the proviral DNA. Now this proviral DNA integrates inside the host genome. ये viral का proviral DNA, it gets integrated with the host genome. So when the host genome multiplies, it leads to proliferation of the viral DNA. Okay? So host genome actually Now host genome is helping the virus to multiply, because virus has gone inside the host genome. It has incorporated, it has become a part of the host genome. So when the host genome multiplies, the virus also multiplies. Okay, so there is proliferation of the virus, and then with the help of the other viral accessory genes, there is synthesis of the viral proteins, core structure ban jata hai, envelope ban jata hai, and then there is formation of the lipid bilayer by the host reaction, and complete viral particle is formed, which is surrounded by the lipid bilayer. So now the CD4 plus T cell, it is loaded with multiple virions. So eventually the CD4 cell get ruptures, and which leads to loss of cell mediated immunity, and loss of CMI or loss of CD4 plus T cells leads to all the clinical signs and symptoms of HIV, because there is profound immunosuppression when the CD4 cell comes down. When the number of CD4 cell comes down, there is profound immunosuppression. Okay, so this is clear till now. It is not documented that mosquito bite can spread it. Okay, so till now we have read the mode of transmission, okay, the risk group for HIV, and once the virus enters the body, how it enters the CD4 plus T cell, and how it replicates and converts into the new gives rise to multiple new virions. Okay, and in the next slide we'll discuss the clinical course of HIV infection. Okay, so this graph shows the clinical course of HIV infection. Here this blue line is the viral load, sorry, this yellow line is the viral load, okay, and this blue line is the CD4 plus T cell count. Here we can see that there is inverse relation. Okay, as the count is decreasing, CD4 plus T cell count is gradually decreasing, the symptoms or the viral load increases, and the profound illness develops. Okay, so here we can see first there is entry of virus, the count was high, obviously normal count. Then there is acute infection. This is also called as acute HIV syndrome. Okay, acute HIV syndrome, there is sudden drop in the count of CD4 plus T cell, because we have read that viral goes inside the CD4 plus T cell, it replicates inside the CD4 plus T cell, then multiple tiny buds of viral or virions appear on the surface of the CD4 T cells, and when the CD4 plus T cell is studded with these virions, it ruptures. Okay, so there is gradual loss of CD4 plus T cell. So whenever there is loss of CD4 plus T cell, whenever there is acute viremia, there is sudden drop in the T cell. But after some time, there is, because of the host immunity comes into play, so the CD4 cell counts improving, and it tries to control the infection. So there is sudden drop in the replication of the virus, but it does not stop completely. It keeps on multiplying at a very slower rate. At the same time, there is some gradual improvement in the CD4 plus T cell count, and at this time the patient goes into the clinical latency. यहाँ पर person जो होता है वो clinically asymptomatic हो जाता है, and this period of clinical latency longs for many years. Till now the patient is HIV positive, but he does not have full-blown symptoms of AIDS. Okay, but the count, यहाँ पे आप देख रहे हैं, the count is gradually decreasing. There is not sudden drop like here, but the count is gradually decreasing. At the same time, the virus slowly multiplying. Okay, so whenever there is whenever the CD4 plus T cell comes down to a critical level, say below 500 के नीचे CD4 plus T cell count काफी कम हो जाता है. Now the virus starts multiplying very rapidly, and now the patient develops full-blown AIDS and all the constitutional symptoms of AIDS. Then and now the CD4 plus T cell count start decreasing very rapidly. यहाँ पे again it is falling very rapidly because the immunity is totally lost. And when the immunity is lost, count is very low, the patient develops all the signs and symptoms of HIV, like multiple opportunistic infections, neoplasm, or cancers can also develop in these patients. And ultimately, because of these infections and loss of immunity, one of the complications of any infection or neoplasm, the patient ultimately dies. Okay, so basically we can divide the clinical course into three phases. One is the phase of acute viremia, followed by a clinical latency phase where the CD4 count is gradually decreasing and the virus is multiplying slowly. And third phase is the rapid decline or the HIV phase, where there is rapid decline in CD4 count and sudden increase in the viral load, and clinically the patient present with all the opportunistic infections of AIDS and full-blown features of AIDS. Okay, so we have three phases. Okay, now coming to the how to shift this. I don't know, I can't shift it. How to shift this? Good. So this is the immune response. Here we can see the viral particles can be isolated in the acute phase. Then after suppression of acute phase, virus particles, they are in very minimal level. And again, cytotoxic T lymphocytes also increase. Then antibodies don't develop in the acute phase. They develop after a few weeks. Okay. After 6 weeks, antibodies to the anti-envelope antibodies develop, and also the anti-P24 antibodies develop. And initially IgG antibodies, then IgM antibodies, they remain throughout. Okay, so antibody, if we screen the patient in this period between, like say 0 to 6 weeks, this period is a window period. If we test the patient for these antibodies, then these antibodies will be absent. So when the person is in window period, then detection of P24 antigen or the viral particle is the only mode to diagnose the HIV infection. Okay. So we'll discuss again. This picture shows the relation of the viral load with the CD4 plus T cell count, which we have discussed. Again, serious symptoms develop when the CD4 count is very low, say below 200 is critically low, and below 500 patient starts developing all the constitutional symptoms of HIV. Then coming to the clinical stages. Okay, clinically patient कैसे present करेगा हमारे पास? There are multiple stages of HIV. Stage 1 is asymptomatic, and usually the patient is having persistent generalized lymphadenopathy, acute retroviral infection. Okay, usually पेशेंट को माइल्ड जनरलाइज लिम्फेडेनोपैथी होती है, और कभी कभी पेशेंट कैन हैव फीवर फॉर वेरी शॉर्ट ड्यूरेशन, एंड यूजुअली मोस्ट ऑफ द पेशेंट दे आर नॉट डायग्नोज्ड एट स्टेज 1. ओके, so this is the phase of acute viremia. Second and third, they are the stage of clinical latency, and this is the stage 3 is actually the end of the clinical latency period and start of the HIV infection. Okay, so in stage 2 the patient usually have loss of weight. Loss of weight means significant loss of weight, which means less than 10% of the body weight, and minor mucocutaneous infections. Patient can have infections like herpes zoster, recurrent URIs, or upper respiratory infection. Okay, again here we can see the symptoms are very vague. In the stage 3, most commonly most of the patient they are diagnosed as stage 3. Okay, so here the weight loss is present. Now the weight loss is in stage 2, the weight loss was there, but it was not very significant. And in stage 3, the weight loss is significant, and it is more than 10% of the body weight. The patient have diarrhea of more than 1 month, unknown diarrhea for more than a month, which is not lasting, which is not responding to any treatment. And the duration of diarrhea is more than 1 month, means chronic diarrhea. This is one of the very common symptoms. Loss of weight and chronic diarrhea. This is a very common symptoms. Prolonged fever or the pyrexia of unknown origin. Again, more than 1 month or for prolonged duration. Okay, so loss of weight, chronic diarrhea, prolonged fever, and patient can have oral candidiasis. Normally, in an immunocompetent patient, oral candidiasis is not very common. Sometimes if the patient present with severe oral oral candidiasis or oropharyngeal candidiasis, then we actually ask the patient to get an HIV done. Okay. So oral candidiasis, oral hearing leukoplakia, pulmonary tuberculosis, or even the severe bacterial infection, or the vulvovaginal candidiasis. All these are the constitutional symptoms of HIV. Then in stage 4, now the patient develops full-blown AIDS, extra pulmonary tuberculosis. Then patient have opportunistic infections like Pneumocystis carinii, pneumonia, candidiasis of esophagus, trachea, bronchi, toxoplasmosis, cryptococcosis with mycobacteriosis. Sometimes patient also develops some infections like lymphoma, Kaposi sarcoma, and HIV encephalopathy. Okay, this is clear till now. Someone has asked, ma'am, what's the reason for clinical latency? Clinical latency develops because of the host immune response. After acute viremia, there is the host immune response come into play, and there is containment of the viral replication. Okay, and gradual improve in the CD4 plus T cell count. Okay, so this leads to clinical latency, but during this clinical latency period, the patient is not having, usually don't have any constitutional symptoms or any signs and symptoms of HIV, but there is slowly the virus keeps on multiplying, and there is gradual loss of CD4 plus T cell count. Okay. So again, the same thing, early phase usually lasts for 2 weeks. It is accompanied by fever, rashes, flu-like symptoms, or acute, this is called as acute viral syndrome. Then middle phase lasting for months to several years. And usually these patients have anti-HIV antibodies, and there's continuous depletion of CD4 plus T cell. In late phases, there's rapid decline in CD4 plus T cell along with lots of infections, which we have discussed. Some unusual cancers. Sometimes first time the patient presents with unusual cancers like Kaposi sarcoma. Then retrograde, we ask the patient to get an HIV done. Okay. So unusual cancers can also develop in HIV patients. This is given in your book. This is the list of, sometimes short note comes on enumerate the opportunistic infections and neoplasm in HIV patients. So this table is very important for you people, as it comes in exams. Infections, protozoal infections. Normally these infections are not very common in immunocompetent individuals. Okay, so these infections are seen in immunocompromised individuals like cryptosporidiosis, isosporidiosis, Pneumocystis carinii, pneumonia, toxoplasmosis, fungal infections like candidiasis, cryptococcosis, coccidiomycosis, even histoplasmosis. Sometimes there can be multiple infections. Okay. Then bacterial infections like Mycobacterium tuberculosis, or sometimes even atypical Mycobacterium infections can happen in these patients. Nocardiosis, salmonella infection. In viral infection, we have CMV infection, cytomegalovirus infection, herpes infection, varicella zoster infection, progressive multifocal leukoencephalopathy, and 3 neoplasms. One is the Kaposi sarcoma, very important, primary lymphoma of brain. These primary lymphomas of brain, they are very uncommon. So when we first encounter the primary lymphoma of brain, we ask the patient to get an HIV done. Okay. Invasive carcinoma of uterine cervix. So these 3 neoplasms are very common in HIV individuals. Okay. So now coming to the lab diagnosis of HIV. Okay. So we can detect the HIV. So the test can be divided into specific tests and non-specific tests. Among the specific tests, which are specific or special for HIV infection, this is the detection of the antigen, P24 antigen. What was P24 antigen? Please mention in the question box. Yes, it is caspid antigen. So caspid is the protein which encircles the viral genome. Okay. So P24 is the major caspid protein. Okay. So this is very commonly seen in and this is very specific for HIV infection. Okay. Then we can isolate the virus detection of viral nucleic acid, or even the antibody detection. Okay, but antibody detection is not fruitful if we do it in the window period. Okay, then we can have certain non-specific tests like, how to shift this? Yeah, shift it. Okay, I can't even shift it. Total and differential leukocyte count, T lymphocyte subset assay, platelet count, levels of immunoglobulins, and skin test for CMI. Okay, these are the supportive tests, non-specific, but these are the specific tests for HIV infection. Okay, among the specific tests, very commonly done tests are P24 antigen detection. Now this P24 antigen is present even in the window period. Then reverse transcriptase, which is positive in 2 weeks. All these tests, they are positive in earliest manifestation and very commonly done in routine practice. And IgM. IgM antibodies against the viral antigens, but they are usually present after 4 to 6 weeks of infection. And this is shortly followed by, IgM is shortly followed by IgG for P24 antigen. So अगर हमें window period में करना है, then we have to go for the P24 antigen, reverse transcriptase, or sometimes, but it is not very commonly done, we can go for the viral isolation of the virus particle. Okay, but this is not very common because it is very dangerous and cumbersome. Okay, so during the window period, we either do for the P24 antigen or viral gene. Commonly done is the reverse transcriptase, and after 4 to 6 weeks of infection, we can go for IgM antibodies against the P24 antigen or P24 antigen against IgG antibodies. They remain positive throughout the infection. And these antibodies can be detected by the method called as ELISA. What is the full form of ELISA? Please write in the question box. I can't open it. Quick. Enzyme-linked immunosorbent assay. Good. So by ELISA test, we can detect the IgG and IgM antibodies against the P24 antigen. Okay. So first we have seen that we can do the antigen detection method, commonly P24 and R reverse transcriptase gene. Then we can also isolate the virus. Okay, from the peripheral lymphocyte, we can isolate it, and then we can co-cultivate we can isolate the virus from the peripheral lymphocyte, peripheral CD4 plus T lymphocyte, and we can cultivate it. But this method is very cumbersome and also risky. Okay, so because during the virus isolation, sometimes even it can infect the lab workers. Okay, so this is not done very commonly, but this is again very sensitive method for detecting virus, especially in the window period also. Okay? Then we can detect the viral nucleic acid. It is done by it is also very gold standard and specific for HIV infection. It can be done by DNA PCR or RNA PCR. Okay. Then antibody detection, antibodies especially against the P24 antigen, but they are not present in the window period. So 2 to 8 weeks to months after the antibodies appear in the infection during the part of the viral infection, maybe highly infectious, known as the window period, but infection. But the thing is that they are specific, but they cannot be detected during the window period. Okay, this is the gist. And again, this picture is very important. This table is very important. So here we can see infection can be divided into window period, acute infection, asymptomatic infection, or the infection of clinical latency, or acute retroviral syndrome, or the full-blown AIDS. Okay, so the antigens like the P24 antigens and reverse transcriptase antigen, they are present in the window period and acute infection also, and also in the AIDS related complex or the full-blown AIDS will be present hota hai. But they are very low in the asymptomatic period infection or the clinical latency infection. Okay, virus isolation is again present in the window period. अगर हम वायरस आइसोलेट करते हैं तो window period में पॉजिटिव होता है. Acute infection may be present, but during asymptomatic infection, because of the low load, sometimes they can be missed. Obviously, in full-blown AIDS, they are present. ELISA is negative. ELISA for P24 antigen and RT reverse transcriptase antigen, they are negative in the window period, but they are present in the acute infection and also in the asymptomatic infection. This is very important. If the infection is so, again, normally what we do, if we suspect that the patient is in the window period, then usually we go for P24 or RT antigen assay. But if the chronic case, then we go for the antibodies to P24 antigen. Okay, so they are present in asymptomatic infection and also in the full-blown AIDS. Western blot again negative in the window period but positive in subsequent phases like acute infection, asymptomatic infection, and acute retroviral syndrome. Okay, so this table is very important. Screening test, ELISA, rapid test, single test, supplementary test, we can confirm it by Western blot, indirect immunofluorescence assay, or radioimmunoassay. Okay. Again, nothing to do. You don't have to learn how do ELISA, but this is the ELISA plate. In the ELISA plate, we actually detect the antibodies. So we take the patient serum, and these wells, they are coated with antigen. So if there are antibodies in the patient serum, they act with the antigens. So antigen antibody reaction occurs, and this leads to change in the color, and then we measure the optical density. Okay, so that's how we give it as positive or negative. Okay, so this is one of the screening test. Then again, this picture shows Western blot. Their lines. This is the negative control. This is the positive control, and this is patient strips. So here we can see P24 antigen is present, very faded, clear cut positive. Okay, so this picture shows Western blot. So once it is positive by ELISA technique, we usually confirm it by Western blot technique, and both of these measure the antibodies only. Okay, that's it. Thank you very much. So that was about the. So till now we have discussed the structure of the virus particle, what are the modes of transmission, what are the risk groups, what is the pathogenesis, how it enters the CD4 plus T cell, how it infects and causes loss of CD4 plus T cells. Then we have also read the different phases of HIV infection. Okay, and also how do we diagnose HIV infection in different phases. Okay, and what are the opportunities of infection and clinical signs and symptoms of HIV infection. Okay, that's it. Thank you very much. Thank you all.